Yeah, that's right, guys. Things are picking up here. We're live in Cheshire at Cheshire High School. Right now, Democrat incumbent Jahana Hayes and her Republican challenger David Sullivan are still traveling at this hour to various polling locations across the 5th District to try and hold some signs, thank their supporters, and pick up some last-minute votes. If you take a look behind me here, there's no line that's formed yet here at Cheshire High School. Things will pick up as people get out of work, but there are some supporters of various political candidates here holding signs. Now, Fox 61 was there this morning as Representative Hayes cast her ballot in her hometown of Wolcott. David Sullivan lives in New Fairfield. He's going to vote there. Voter turnout here in the 5th District is expected to be very high. In fact, so much so that when David Sullivan went to vote at 6 o'clock this morning, the lines were so long that he decided to come back later. He should be voting right about now in New Fairfield. This is an interesting race. The two candidates are both well-funded. Jahana Hayes has raised about $1.8 million. Sullivan has about $370,000 in his war chest. Hayes has tried to paint Sullivan as someone who doesn't represent the values of voters here in the 5th District, while Sullivan has tried to tie Hayes to the extreme left of the Democratic Party, citing her lockstep voting record with Nancy Pelosi and the quote-unquote squad of freshman representatives.
I think we need changes, and we've had Democrat representation in Congress throughout all 5 congressional districts in Connecticut, and our 2 United States senators, and the State House in Hartford 48 out of the last 50 years. We just need to start doing things differently.
At the end of the day, I ran for Congress 2 years ago because I have a deep love for humanity, and I believe that all people can thrive, be conscientious and productive citizens if they're just given a shot.
Hayes is a former National Teacher of the Year. She sits on 3 congressional committees, including education. Sullivan spent 30 years as a federal prosecutor and also teaches at Western Connecticut State University. Now, coming up on the news at 5, I'll be diving into the demographics of the district here in the 5th District and explain what makes it so unique. But for now, we are live in Cheshire. Matt Karen, Fox 61 News.
All right, Matt, keep us up.